Kwasi Kwarteng delivers stonking budget. Today I'm joined by Tej Gill of Niger Accountants, and Tej is here to give us an appraisal of the budget. But before we dive into the numbers, Tej, let's first take a look at what this means and in the wider picture. Why have they delivered such a giveaway budget which is in the opposite direction of every country?
Yeah, hi Andrew. Thanks for having me back on again. Yeah, I guess the way to look at it is that the UK needs to. They've really rolled the dice here to say we need to do something different to get moving. We've seen in previous recessions in recent times, the US have gone all out on building new roads and everything, stimulating the economy by putting more money in. And the government here have seemingly decided that that's the way they're also going to do it: put money into the pockets of people to make investments and grow the economy that way. Certainly, that's the take, but obviously they haven't probably gone about it and communicated it in the most convincing fashion by leaving out certain key elements.
Well, I think you're right in terms of they've not necessarily gone about it in the right fashion. I mean, if we wind to a top level, basically we've had a situation here in the UK where Rishi Sunak has stood down as Chancellor of the Exchequer. We've had Boris Johnson stand down as Prime Minister, which basically means that to get re-elected, this Conservative government needs to do something that impacts people's pockets, hearts, and minds now. And as we're on an island, well, of course they're going to treat it like we're on our own. But unfortunately, we're in a global marketplace, and we've got the likes of the IMF saying, you need to reverse that budget. It's not good for the global economy. You're swimming against the tide of everybody else. And we've got Biden, who's set in the direction of travel, which is recession, pay debt down, cut. And he wants the globe to go in that direction. But we're going growth, opportunity, here we come. So, Tej, what does this mean for us as lay people?
I mean, you raised a lot of interesting points in there, Andrew. They and rightly so, the Conservative government that we now have, obviously not a fully elected on a fully elected mandate. It was a different person that was voted in. So they really are having to show their teeth, trying to get things moving to justify them being there. And hopefully, a couple of years' time, the next general election, they're hoping that they will have done enough to show that it works. I mean, I'm sure if they went into an election right now, and the gains they made in the traditional Labour heartlands in the last election will probably be wiped out simply because of the number of cuts they've given to the top earners. So they really have to. This really has to come to some fruition for them in the next 18, 24 months, so they can start campaigning on what a great plan it was. And also, what's interesting is what you said about Biden is pushing cuts, because as I mentioned, the US last cycle round, everybody else went austerity, cut back across the whole world. Europe, Greece, Greece obviously went further than most people did. UK, we had massive cuts as well. America went the other way, invested money, and came out first. So I think that seems to be what Liz is trying to do. But for us as the general public, what does it? It's going to impact in the short term. We've seen the pound tank against every currency out there. And that obviously means now we've got used to eating luxurious foods from outside of the UK, and I think it's all 46% of the food we eat is imported. In the property business that we're in, a lot of materials are imported. Insulation we get from overseas, from Europe. So there's going to be a further increase in the cost of living. And I think this is what the IMF were getting at, that there's going to be, they need to think about reversing some of these things, because there will be a knock-on effect to the already growing inflation issue that we have here, and the cost of living crisis is going to get worse. The disparity between rich and poor is going to get worse. These are all things the IMF have said. And with the weaker pound, unless we change our habits to start buying local, like people did during COVID, then the cost of living the life that we've got used to living is going to get a lot more expensive for everybody. And that's probably going to be one of the main impacts people see.
Absolutely. I think you're quite right. Things are going to get more expensive. I mean, the pound changed against the dollar from about 114 down to 103. Now, that is, let's just have a look at everyday life. We all have to travel somewhere. That is usually using things like petrol, diesel, and that's automatically put the price of your gallon of fuel up 10%. So around about 18, 20 pence per litre is going on at the price of the pumps imminently. Now, you made an interesting point there about the rich getting favoured in this budget. Now, if you're enjoying this, stay tuned, because there is going to be another video coming up where I explain the budget in beer. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and you will find out how actually the poor are getting better off in this budget as a result of the tax break at the top. And we will demonstrate that in detail.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, Tej. So let's come back to this budget. I mean, looking at it in sort of detail, Rishi Sunak had sort of said, oh, we're going to increase corporation tax to 25%. Well, we're reducing it to 19%. Now, the last time we sort of saw changes like this, and I did a talk at the Baker Street Property Meet, so join me down there every single month, last Wednesday of the month, and you can join myself and Ranjan Bhattacharya, who host that meeting. And in May 2022, I demonstrated how all of our data was matching and mirroring 1971 to 73. Now, Kwasi Kwarteng's just gone and pulled a blinder out, and I think he's blown the dust off the Bevan budget and delivered the Bevan budget again. Now, back then, it didn't work out, because in 1976, the UK had to be bailed out by the IMF. Hence, I think the warnings from the IMF, this budget ain't good, because they're looking back at history. So, Tej, do you want to run us through some of the big things that are happening and going on here?
Yeah, I mean, you said there about, Rishi obviously wanted to increase corporation tax from next year up to 25%, which, I think we spoke at the time as well, and we've done a video on it, where there's been, there were cuts made when that future increase was announced. There were cuts made then and incentives given then to encourage investment. The super deduction, 130% capital allowance, the super deduction was exactly one of those things. They gave people 30% extra now, but they were going to charge you 30% extra corporation tax down the line to recoup it. So I almost wonder if have those incentives that were previously given actually not generated the return they were hoping for. And so rather than bumping up corporation tax now and then just taxing, taking more money from companies instead of allowing them to carry on reinvesting and growing, maybe they're deferring it and just the rise may come in the future, but for now keep it where it is and let people carry on making these investments to grow the economy. And what I like about that actually is that it's almost like a tacit admission from the government that they suck at creating growth themselves. They money in the government's pocket is never going to help grow the economy. That's left to, the enterprises, the entrepreneurs of the world. Those are the ones that are going to create the growth, create the opportunities, create the jobs, and create that cycle of money through the economy, which increases the GDP. So it's almost like the government is saying, you know what, we know we're not good at this. And yes, it's not popular to put more money back into the people that are in the 45% bracket, but they do it better than we do. So let's just let them do it for a couple of years and see where we end up. Because, and that to me almost is, I quite like that they seem to have done that and put that forward.
Are you just suggesting there that if we give the money to the government, that when they invest it in duck houses for their moats and things like that? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, pretty much. Second homes and other useless causes. There's always white elephants. There's always infrastructure projects. There's always something. The track and trace app. What a waste of funds that was. So I think the money, the private sector should do better at generating growth from the money that they're now going to be able to retain, and that is where the next couple of years will generate. Then the rising tide hopefully will lift all boats, and everybody's in a better position in a couple of years. It all just depends on it's just a case of seeing yourself through to that point. Obviously, there's inflation going up, which means the Bank of England will be looking to hike the interest rates further again. There is talk about not even waiting for the next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee and just doing it straight away or during October. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on people. I think I saw some numbers the other day, earlier in the day. Somebody with I think it was a £400,000 mortgage going from 2% to 6% is going to cost them an extra £800 a month in mortgage payments. So it's going to there's rough seas for the next couple of years for sure, but there's always opportunity in there.
Well, I do personally think that interest rates are being cranked at a reasonably quick rate, and they're not necessarily allowing for items to come through in the wash. Interest rates are going up to control and dampen inflation, but what we haven't seen is we're not at the 1st of October yet, and there's a big energy price rise. And that is going to take £100 a month out of everybody's pockets based on average bills. Then Exactly. You've got the last interest rate rises, which with the amount of people on fixes, it's not actually affecting many people at all. But if you're not on a fix and you've got the energy price rise as well, that's £200 minimum out of your pocket that month. So I think there's a bit too much of an accelerated program. What you often find with governments and interest rate changes is they will drive forward an agenda of rate rises, but they go past the finish line before they actually bring it back to where it needs to be. And that is my concern and worry, that we're over talking things, but we're not actually seeing half of these measures impacting people. I was talking to estate agents yesterday, and they were saying to me they have never had so many people take their house off the market in such a short period of time. Right, this is unheard of, and these are people who've been in the business 25 plus years, so they've seen a few cycles. I'm talking to retailers, and they are saying that they have never seen sales plummet as fast as they have. So although we're talking about a budget here for boosting the economy, the rhetoric around the wider market is actually killing the economy, and the press are talking us down rather than talking
Absolutely.
us up.
I think you make a very valid point there, that it's, despite what the government have wanted to try to do with this, and we said at the beginning, they haven't gone about it probably in the best manner. They haven't communicated in the best manner, and things like they didn't provide budget forecasts. They didn't even go to the Office for Budget Responsibility and take their forecasts and present it with the numbers to show where this money was coming from to do this, how it was going, what the growth projections were. So it's almost like going and asking for money from the bank without having a business plan. They're just not going to be very happy about it. And if they do give you the money, you expect some pretty stringent terms with it. So that's essentially what they did with it, and they really miscommunicated what they were doing, how they were doing it. Because in another video we did previously, we were talking about how the government's coffers are probably quite full at the moment, or at least a little while ago, with all the VAT receipts and everything else, with the amount of expenditure that was going on in the economy, and the fuel duty on the increase in the fuel price and everything. So they probably have. I mean, had they presented the numbers with it, there may well have probably been a little bit less shock in the market, because they probably would have seen that there was a fair amount of money actually being used from the government, and it wasn't all down to just borrowing. Obviously, there will be a large piece of borrowing, but it's the uncertainty that makes everything go haywire, like we're seeing at the moment, which then obviously filters down into everyone's day-to-day life. And the point you made about the bank going through the rate rises really quickly, they're almost not allowing enough time to see the impact of it before doing the next one. If they do another one now, having done one just 2 weeks ago, it's accelerating even more. You almost think, well, in that case, let's just jump to 6% now and then leave it alone, and then you can always come back if you need to, rather than 1% here, 1% there, 0.5%. Just pull the plaster off and let's see what happens. But yeah, I think you're right though, that once it does get to that 6%, that everyone's expecting. It's not going to sit there forever. It will come back down, probably within 12 months of that, once everything's normalised again.
But I do think it's like racing a Formula One car and overshooting the finish line before you decide you're going to stop, and then reversing up to come and wave to the crowd. It's that sort of situation is where I feel we're headed. So, Tej, from a budget point of view, what would be the big takeaways for you? What did you think? Oh, that's a smart move.
Actually, one that really stood out, because having had the annual investment allowance for capital expenditure in place for a number of years, then it got the 30% addition on top. It was scheduled to go back down to, I think it was £200,000 from April. So leaving that as £1 million, I think is a really good move, because one issue we have here in the UK is that our productivity levels compared to the rest of the G7 economies is really low. I think we invest only 10% of profits back into infrastructure and development, whereas I think the average for the other G7 is 16%. So we're a long way off investing in things that make us more productive, and a more productive economy is then going to grow that much faster. So that for me was actually one of the key benefits. And bringing it back to the property sector, obviously people that are in that rent to rent space, HMO space, those kind of people are going to be able to take advantage of that. So there's that to me was one of the smartest moves. Was saying, we will give you the deduction for that investment, so keep making those investments. Could they have perhaps tried to incentivize buying British-made items in there as well? Perhaps keep the 30% uplift in there, but for UK manufactured items of capital expenditure. At least then the money is cycling within the UK economy, and the GDP will grow that way. So maybe there was an opportunity with that as well to go one step further.
You're sounding a bit like Margaret Thatcher on that note. Buy British, remember that.
I was going to say that's probably one of the worst, but I've actually probably been called worse than that. So.
So the capital allowances, I do agree with you. That is a great way of making money out of this budget, where you get enhanced capital allowances effectively to save you having to pay tax. So the more you spend, the more you save. There's an irony there, isn't there? I mean, the stamp duty, looking at that, I was reading some statistics put out by Rightmove, who had applied the stamp duty changes to the properties that were then currently listed yesterday on their portal. And 70% of properties will pay no stamp duty.
That's a game changer.
That's a bit of a game changer. Now, as a property investor, you still will pay the 3% additional stamp duty, though. But it's worth looking at this and saying, if you're buying a £400,000 property, that's £2,500 you save. In reality, that's about 0.75% of the price of the property that you're saving. So it's not that big a saving in real terms, but £2,500, that's sufficient to carpet the house new. So it's spending in the economy is what they're trying to do there.
Yeah, exactly that. The money isn't going to get squirreled away. It will get used for renovation of the home, or making it their own. So it will have a knock-on effect into other areas of expenditure. But that's really interesting. 70% of the homes then that no longer within the stamp duty bands that's a big game changer, because it will open up a lot of people to be able to buy those first time homes that have been waiting. Obviously that's offset with the interest rate rises. They've got to be able to balance those books and ensure they can afford the new interest rates, particularly with the fixed mortgages being pulled in the last couple of days.
As property investors, to look at this, some people have incorporated, and we've talked about the corporation tax. There's a 6% saving there if you've incorporated your property portfolio. But if you're still operating as a sole trader, there was a 19% band, there was a 40% band, and then there's a 45% band. But we've got rid of this 45% band. That's quite good, really, isn't it, for property investors?
If you're leveraged, if you have mortgages, then you're still pretty much in the same position. You're still going to get hit with that Section 24 if you're up at that kind of earnings level. But the impact's going to be even worse now. You know, with the interest rates going up, the amount that you're not getting relief for is going to increase. You may be on fixed periods now for a while, but you know, if these fixed term loans are being pulled back, then there will be a bite at some point. And so, you know, we'd seen anyway, generally, because of the interest rate increases, a lot more people coming to us saying, right, I want to actually do this now. I actually want to incorporate. We've been talking to people for quite a while about it. Some people were just holding off. You know, change is not something many people like. And now, though, they're sort of coming and banging the door down, saying, right, let's get this done. You know, the house prices are going up. My inheritance tax position is going to get worse with these properties in my name. My deduction, the amount that I don't get relief for, is going to get bigger and bigger. So let's just bite the bullet, and people are doing it. So I think the incorporating your portfolio is still a very sensible move for future planning and for optimizing what you're doing today, because there is leakage. There's more leakage in your personal name than there is through the limited company.
Absolutely. So getting rid of the 45% tax band, it benefits you if your income from earnings and your rent roll added together is £150,000 or more. It saves you that extra top slice of tax at 45%. But there was some good news in terms of national insurance. We were all expecting increases, but I believe that is being reversed now, is it?
Yeah, the extra 1.25% is cut. So, you know, all these things will add up. That's also cut, I believe, of the employer's national insurance increases as well. So, again, more money in the company's pocket to do things with. So yeah, there's that, along with the 19%, you know, reducing the income tax band from 20 to 19% as well. It's all little bits that that they hope will add up. I think those things are probably more just around the edges. Some of the big things that might actually help, we've not actually probably heard the full details of at the moment. There was a lot of talk about the IR35, so a lot of people who invest in property as a sideline do so while you know, having some sort of contracting business, whether that's IT contracting or something else. And a lot of them have been caught by IR35, medical professionals as well. So, you know, the cutting back those rules and going back to being able to just work on a contract basis is going to be big. There's going to be a lot of savings there for people as well. And also but again, we don't know the full details of how that's going to look exactly. And the other big thing that we don't know the details about are the investment zones. You know, that is going to be a big, you know, for property investors, knowing where you're going to be able to pick up property with relaxed planning rules, with stamp duty benefits, business rates benefits you can offer to tenants. There's a lot of incentives there to and I don't even know if those numbers have been costed in to this £150 billion or whatever it is that the government's having to borrow, because we don't know the details of what that scheme is going to look like, what councils it's going to be with. So when that comes out, that will be definitely something to keep an eye on.
It's interesting you say the 150 billion the country's going to have to borrow. Now, I've looked at this in terms of the bigger picture here, and when you stimulate growth, generally tax receipts rise. When you lower tax rates, generally tax receipts rise. And the reason they rise is, you'll appreciate this, and I say it tongue in cheek to you, Tej. Things like the tax planning, it becomes less cost effective to deploy tax planning when tax rates are low. So people don't invest in those sorts of things. Now, I also look at it from the point of view that things like the IR35, the bankers' bonuses is another one that I'll mention at this point. There is a bit of a brain drain where people are leaving the UK silently to actually go and apply their trade elsewhere where they pay less tax. Now that is a bonus to us for keeping the bankers' bonuses, reducing those tax rates here. And that's why I say we'll do a video in the future explaining the budget in bottles of beer and how it actually is beneficial to have those high rate taxpayers on a lower tax rate, because everybody then pays less tax. So class 4 national insurance, Tej, that again has been cut, which is a saving for people who are self-employed. So it seems like there's something in this budget for everybody, whether you're employed or self-employed, you stand to benefit. Is there anything that you'd like to add into that, Tej, regards the class 4? Do you see it as a big advantage to the self-employed?
Yeah, I mean, anything that obviously leaves more money in people's pockets is advantageous, as long as those people part with it, right? Because there's no point in just the idea is to give people more disposable income that they use for something. So I look at it, there's two types of people that end up with the money in the pocket. There's the ones that will spend it on something that gives immediate satisfaction, and that's fine because you need that money cycling through the economy. And then you have the people who will spend it to grow it, right? So yes, you can leave it, or actually maybe if interest rates go up to 6%, you might well just leave it in the bank. But there are people that will want to turn it into something, right? And those are the ones that I think, with the scrapping the 45%, with scrapping the bankers' bonuses, with the class 4 national insurance, because to be self-employed, you have to have a bit of an entrepreneurial spark in you anyway, and that's across the board, whether you're self-employed, whatever it is you do. So to do that, those people have to have something, and giving them more money back in their pocket means they're more likely to be the second class of person that would go and use that money in a way that they can grow it, and if they grow it, then it will grow the economy. So, you've got people that will spend within the economy will carry on as it is, and it will grow just naturally. And then you have the ones that will invest it, who will help push the economy further and increase the growth rates further. And that's where we'll get the benefit of certain types of people having more money in their pocket, and certain companies having more money in their pocket from this budget.
Well, the other thing which I picked up that helps people have money in their pocket is the dividends and the reversal of the caps on how much can we be withdrawn with dividends. I mean, what is your interpretation of that?
Yeah, I mean, what they did, along with scrapping the 45%, the 38.1% is gone as well. So the top rate you'll pay for dividend now is the 32.5% bracket. So that immediately as well, it makes it cheaper for people to take that extra amount out if they need it for personal use. So that is going to, again, it's all little bits that will help stimulate the economy. They get everyone apart with an extra $1,000 a year, then that's gonna help us get out of the hole.
Well, everything I've seen in this budget is about putting more money in everybody's pocket, be it national insurance, income tax, if you're a company, corporation tax, if you're paying dividends or receiving dividends, dividend tax credits. So all of this is about pumping money into the economy. Now I can understand, therefore, at this point, why the rest of the world is getting upset, because they're going, we want to take money out of our economies and you want to grow your economy. Therefore, you're going to attract the best brains and people to the UK, and we're going to lose out, and it's going to make the pain we suffer greater. Do you think there's some merit in that, and that's why they're throwing their toys out the cot at us?
Yeah, I think there is, obviously, countries are always self-interested in what they do and say, and you're right that the UK is bucking the trend of what the world is doing. But what's interesting is, by the borrowing that the UK will be doing, will be taking to do this, is, if you look at it on the basis of your home, say for example, you have a mortgage on your home, and you've got 50% loan to value. So you've got some headroom there to be able to take out some more, reinvest and grow. So yes, you're taking on more debt, but you're using it for a constructive purpose and you're going to grow. The UK GDP to debt ratio is actually probably one of the lowest of the G7 economies. So there's a bit of headroom in there to take some more debt, national debt on. As long it's all about servicing the debt. That's what you need to do, and that extra headroom that they take advantage of is what they will hope will generate the same growth. In the example of someone taking out a bit more debt on their home, it all trends in the same direction. And I think where other countries that are, say, throwing stones are upset is because they probably don't have the same amount of headroom to be able to justify it. I think, obviously with an aging population here in the UK as well, some of these moves need to be made to bring in people that are of a younger age that are able to contribute and incentivize them to be here. And 45% tax bans, bonuses on caps on bankers' bonuses, and generally sort of vilifying people that do well is not incentivizing people to come here, let alone stay here.
I would totally agree with you, and you are right. I mean, the UK debt to GDP is 102%, which when compared to Italy, America, Japan, other nations, we're lower.
Yeah.
So therefore, we've got a lower loan to value, to put it into property terms. Have we got the ability to service that debt? Yes, we have, because we're stimulating our economy. The fact that we're on an island and we're trying to act as though we are a self-contained island is where it sort of falls apart a little bit, because the trade winds that blow off our shores, a bit like hurricanes through the Caribbean, all of that is going to affect how we as a nation will fare. And what is happening at the moment is we are being buffeted by hurricanes from each nation, trying to create a run on our exchange rate to make our goods more expensive, to therefore make us cheaper, because we've created the right environment for our businesses to be bought, and they will be more profitable to those countries or companies in those countries. So in one way, we put ourselves at risk of selling or having stolen from us all of our intellectual property and it being bought by overseas businesses. I've seen this many times. On the flip side of it, I have a trading business, and in the period 2008 to 12, I did phenomenal because I diversified my business into export, and we grew the business during that period of time. We booked the trend because exports become cheaper. So if manufacturers and people who export goods and services grow that business, that is one of the tactics that the government are looking for.
I think actually talking about the pound being cheaper and overseas investment coming in, I went to the States for my summer holidays, got family out there, and everyone was saying, well, you know what, I might actually come to the UK now because the pound's so weak. And this was before it came down to almost level with the dollar. So, one unintended consequence might be actually more tourism to the UK as well. It's suddenly 10 to 20% cheaper to come here. You might see they may get the boot, and also we've got a new monarch as well, so people might want to come and see him. So it may be an unforeseen benefit of the budget.
So I'm thinking today, Tej, we've covered an awful lot in this budget. We've looked at the economics, the politics, and the fiscal nature of this budget. And if you're loving it, make sure you smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button, the share button. People love it to hear this content. And if you absolutely loving what Tej is saying, make sure you hit Tej up. nidjaaccountants.co.uk is the website address. Get in touch with him. He's a really great guy. And as you can see, he doesn't just process the numbers, he thinks a little bit bigger. Tej, it's been wonderful to have you with us again.
Yeah, it's been great. It's a different topic, but it was fun to explore it.
It was indeed. It was indeed. Thank you.